Welcome to Curb Cuts and Conversations, the show where we explore accessibility, urbanism, and how we move through the world. I'm your host, Elizabeth McCready, content creator, wheelchair user, designer, and communications professional. My unofficial co-host is one of my cats, Boo. Every episode is guaranteed to have an unscheduled cameo by Boo. He loves meeting people, snuggling on my shoulder, and getting into mischief. At the start of Boo's cameos, I share a Boo-recommended merch shop offer just for audience members. For this premiere episode, I'm joined by Sara Hendren, author of What Can a Body Do? Educator, public speaker, and design researcher, for a thoughtful exploration of access, creativity, and the built environment. We talk about Sara's book, What Can a Body Do? How We Meet the Built World, how design intersects with disability and care, and why those stories, especially those shaped by lived experience, matter in both academic and public conversations. Whether you're an urbanist, designer, accessibility advocate, or just curious about how people move through the world, this episode offers a grounded, insightful starting point for the series. Stay tuned to the end to learn how wheelchair tires, Presto Card transit credit, and catnip are connected to a special offer for the Curb Cuts and Conversations community. Welcome to the first episode of Curb Cuts and Conversations. We have Sara Hendren here, who's the author of What Can a Body Do? And Sara and I met through my accessibility book club when she was gracious enough to do an author talk. So
nice to be here. Thanks, Liz.
You too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. What does accessibility mean to you today in your work and in your life?
Yeah. What does accessibility mean? It's a big question, a broad one. Yeah. I mean, I think it might be useful to say that 10 years ago, I would have said, that in the tradition of the Americans with Disabilities Act in my own country and laws like it elsewhere in the world from about, 35 years ago, that accessibility is this kind of quest to have legally actionable and meaningful entry into the built world, but also everything that the built world indicates. So education, jobs, thriving living situations. So that would mean access where there had been no access. I mean, meaning as a lot of polio survivors in my own country showed, veterans of the world wars, right?
Judy
They
Heumann.
brought to our, yes,
Judy
right.
Heumann,
These
Ed Roberts.
Yeah. Yes, these
Yes.
towering figures who were modern subjects, right? They grew up in the industrialized city, like the mid 20th century city, in bodies that were a misfit for that kind of big city design and the kind of the design of the modern world without disability in its kind of DNA, in its expectation of who would be there. And so those leaders in my own country, and again, with lots of corollaries all over the world, brought to our attention this idea that, like, okay, wait, literally getting into the building, whether that be education or the job or transportation or whatever, is how we become full citizens. Like that's what access means.
Yes.
And I would have said 10 years ago that, like, we're continuing that project. I still think that, I suppose, meaning, what else can we do outside of the ADA to make a more welcoming kind of world where access is this kind of welcome? And I guess now, what would I say? Sometimes I think the idea that we are doing more access ever beyond, like in a kind of like receding goalpost of wishes, sometimes I think that's misplaced. In other words, I think the project of democracy is that each of us adapts and each of us gives up some of what we wish for in the favor of the whole, supporting the plurality of people, right? And so I guess I want to think now about, um, yeah, what access can do in the kind of concrete, tangible sense, but also what is the project of democracy? I don't think that, that for disability, accessibility is the peak of democracy. Like we're engaged in some high stakes, civic work right now, all of us. And the world is different than it was 35 years ago.
For
So
sure.
I don't know, how does any of that land for you? My ideas are shifting, I guess, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've become a wheelchair user in the last year.
Okay. Yeah.
July 31st was my first wheelie-versary.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big life
Um,
change. Yeah.
my biggest barrier I'm finding isn't necessarily the built environment, although I do live in the neighborhood with the most construction in North America.
Wow. That's saying something.
My neighborhood has more construction cranes than LA, the entire city.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary. Yeah.
Yes.
So that'll create some barriers and some,
Yes.
yeah.
But I was grieving that I wouldn't be able to do technical trail running.
Mm-hmm.
I love the paying attention to where I'm going every single step. I get that every time I leave my house.
Ah.
But my biggest barrier is other people
Hmm. Meaning,
touching
yeah.
me, kicking
Yeah.
my chair, running into my chair,
Uh-huh.
reaching over me, you know, pushing me without permission,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes.
So that's the biggest one. And that attitude sort of comes along with what stores I can go into,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
right?
I've heard
Which
that
one?
from others. Yeah. I've heard that.
Which which
Yeah.
ones have a stopgap ramp from Luke Anderson, who hopefully
Yes.
I'll have him on at some point.
Yeah.
I do.
I love that project. Yeah. What
Yeah,
the,
I've met him a couple times. So
yes.
in Toronto.
And what I love
Um,
about that's a really interesting project. And if people don't know it, I hope they'll look. What the thing I draw my students' attention to all the time is the aesthetic of that project, that the ramps
mm,
themselves are brightly colored and that the stopgap logo is in that stenciled font. And to
yes.
me, that says so much. It's like he's trying to propose a city that could evolve and become something other than what it is. It has that under
Yes.
construction look about it. And to me, that's the most compelling feature of that work. I mean, in addition to it being
The
resonantly
aesthetics.
practical, yeah, but the
Yeah.
aesthetics are saying symbolically a lot, in the way that mirrors kind of what you're saying, that like in some ways it's people's idea, mixed up ideas about what wheelchairs are and what they do. That's the bigger
Oh
barrier, it
yeah.
sounds like.
Like
Yeah.
people want to push me because they think it's horrible that I'll give you a
Yes,
break.
that's
I'm
right.
like, no, I have a
Yes.
manual chair for a reason. Why don't you
Yeah,
have one of
yeah,
those
yeah,
electric ones? Well, they weigh 300 to 500 pounds, and
yeah,
I don't need one.
yeah,
And those people that do, like Luke and some others, great. And
yeah.
there's a whole challenges in getting power chairs and maintaining them, even though, um, like Stella, oh come on, Stella Young, I think, said you can charge your phone off to power chair, which is kind of cool too.
Yeah, it
But
is cool. Yeah,
what happens if the thing that you rely on as your legs has a software update and it doesn't work,
yeah, right.
right? Or your
And I
phone,
think people,
they
yeah,
don't realize that. And people get almost sad when I was excited about, I'm going to get my chair. She's so lovely. Oh, is it one of the electric ones? No. Oh,
yeah,
I
yeah,
I have a Tylite ZRA titanium, ultra lightweight with a low back. My cushion, I've got one of my original cushion here. We'll show a Fairlight,
nice.
right?
Yeah.
This is made, Fairlight is from the same company that makes my favorite outdoor gear.
Oh, lovely. Yeah,
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 Cascade Designs. So I trust them.
yeah,
And I think my chair is really cool. I've done it all up in purple now. And the more I bling my chair, the more I get some positive interactions from people,
yeah, yeah.
you know. And
And
it's the aesthetics, going back to the
yes,
stopgap. It's
yeah,
the aesthetics are so important
yeah.
as well.
Because people are otherwise really made uncomfortable by it. And it is unfortunate, right, that people feel the license to like speak into your experience in that way. Because I just
Mhm.
think like, why don't let's just be strangers on the street and share the street. It's like,
Yeah,
how's the weather and
yeah.
where can I get a good cup of coffee or whatever. And
Mhm.
so it turns out, yeah, that the way that the way that medical gear is presented, its
Mhm.
color, its kind of style, all that stuff, it does a kind of symbolic speaking, that even precedes words probably. It's not
Yes.
everything, but
No.
it's certainly a
But it's
part of
also
it.
good for me, for my mental health,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like my chair is me. She goes her name's Darling, goes
Yeah.
everywhere with me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the same stopgap, it's, I wouldn't say pretty because they're a nice red and a nice blue, but they're
Yeah.
stylish.
Yeah. And they're also unignorable. I mean, that to me is what's so
Exactly.
interesting. They're very, excuse me, they're very arresting. And so they pop out from the street. And that
Mhm.
also is something that's unusual in a ramp. People tend to think of them as these
Yes.
kind of like backdoor, very workaday tools. And they are very pragmatic tools. But I love that you can't really ignore that little shape, going down the sidewalk. So it's really cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to ask you about the project, but since we're talking about ramps, and this is Curb Cuts and Conversations,
Yeah.
you have a project where you had a dual use ramp. I believe that
Yeah.
was a skateboard and a ramp, an accessibility
Yes.
ramp.
Yes. In fact, I've got an image of it behind me here.
Oh yeah.
There's a skateboarder who's kind of scaling a wall, aided by these two little ramps that were in my original design. And I've got another image here. I mean, of it also being used in a very practical way as a single step entrance ramp in the way that Luke
Mm.
Anderson's ramps are used. I did an event with Luke in Toronto
Oh, lovely.
many years ago now. Yeah, 10 years ago
Mhm.
probably, when I discovered our kind of shared interest in this. But I was doing my thesis work in graduate school,
Mhm.
and I was trying to just take the ramp, which is a kind of classical simple machine in physics. So like levers, pulleys, screws, all of those are these kind of elemental tools, and the inclined plane
Mm.
is one of them, meaning it's just the shape that alters the behavior of force across a surface, and so it amplifies our work. It makes it easier,
Yes.
right, to get through the world. And I'm just kind of fascinated by the ramp as that kind of like elemental grammar, that's in the built environment. And of course, that's what was so transformative about Curb Cuts, the namesake for your
Yes.
podcast, that the idea that at massive infrastructural scale, you would go and place a kind of inclined plane at the corner where the sidewalk meets the street, as
Yep.
opposed to the hard step down, like all the difference that makes,
Mm.
all the difference that makes. And what a project it was to go and edit, entire cities in this way. And yet we take it for granted now. You talk to people now and they don't realize how recent, that change is. So
Mm.
I was trying to, because, profound changes in the built environment go to sleep in our consciousness, right? Those were really
They-
hard won. And
And
so
then
then
they're in the background.
they're in the background. That's right. So people go like, oh yeah, I never. So my job as a culture maker is very often to just wake up things that are asleep, in the public consciousness, just to try to say, would you look at this again? Because if you look at
Mhm.
it differently, you might behave differently. So I was talking at the time a lot to the wheelchair user, head of the Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I live, Disability Council. And so he was just testing and piloting some ramps with me. And I was saying, like, I'm not doing on my little ramp the 2 inch guardrail that's sort of
Mhm.
required. I was saying, because I'm trying to do this defamiliarizing work. So I'm playing a little bit with the code. And he said, well, you should do grit in the varnish, just to get that grippy, kind of good friction
Yes.
texture. Like that'll buy you some. So like I was both trying to wake the shape itself,
Mhm.
but also then by juxtaposing two city users that you tend not to think of in the same breaths.
Hi from Future Liz. Okay, Boo's letting me know it's time for a break. I'm recording this segment in my friend's condo because my upstairs neighbor has been playing copyrighted music really loud for hours, and there's construction noise. Welcome to Yonge and Eglinton in Toronto, where construction never ends. Do you know that Curb Cuts and Conversations has merch? Just dropped merch with my Cities Are For Everyone, Queen's Key Commute Toronto design. Look for the raccoon riding on top of the streetcar, Boo popping in for his cameo, and my friend Marco chasing me going fast in my wheelchair. There's also someone with a service dog and using a white cane. Stay cozy and warm in our inclusive-sized hoodie, available in 12 colors and sizes from small to 5XL. It's perfect for cool days out or chilling on the couch. We've got backpacks too, with separate compartment for a 15-inch laptop, multiple pockets for organization, water-resistant 100% polyester material for rain. Perfect for your commute or making a bold statement. And if you prefer something smaller, you can grab a magnet. Boo's on there too. And give your fridge some accessible style. There's also mugs, commuter mugs, laptop sleeve, and more bags. All designs on the shop are made by me. No AI, just days drawing in Figma on my MacBook, with Mabel beside me and Boo interrupting me. The first 25 supporters can get 25% off any podcast merch over $25 US dollars until September 25th, 2025. Use the code CURTS25. That's CURBCURTS 25.
So
I am so sorry. I've got a cat who's Boo! 1 minute.
Yeah, sure. We can cut it off.
Yeah. So this is Boo down here.
Lovely. Yeah.
He successfully interrupts every single last Zoom call. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I mean,
And
I
he's
share those feelings
fine, but
about
he
Zoom.
did stick a mini Christmas tree up his nose 2 years ago.
Oh
So
my.
yeah, it's okay. He's under medical care. It's fine. It's stable.
Okay.
So, and he's
Good.
happy.
Yeah.
See. Okay. Sorry. Back to ramps, which this guy
Yeah.
doesn't need because he just bounces off of everything.
It's nice if you're a cat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just that I was trying to do, I mean, in design, it's kind of called critical design, meaning
Yes.
design to think with. So those ramps were engineered to take this several hundred-pound motorized chair if needed with a full-grown adult body into them. So they work, right? It really
Yes.
matters that they're utilitarian and that they work. And the sand and the varnish and all that, was sort of like trying to pay attention to those things so that it could meet this condition of the single step entrance. So like Luke's project, people may know if they live in especially older cities that there's a gray area in the Architectural Code of the Americans with Disabilities Act where if you have this old storefront that's got a single step entrance, you don't have to make a ramp there unless you're overhauling the space in general, and then you kind of trip the code. So
I
what
believe
that
it's
means is
similar in
that,
Toronto.
yeah, it
And
sounds
I'm in
like
a 1930s area.
yeah, right.
So
So what this means, I was talking to wheelchair using friends, one of whom said to me, just offhand, lives here in Boston. She said, when I go out with my partner, to a restaurant and there's a single step entrance, and sometimes there's a bell there, and sometimes there's a sign with the bell to say where the ramp is, and so on. And sometimes there's not. It's very idiosyncratic. And she said, if there's no way to know how to get the ramp, she said, we would do one of two things. Like either he would carry me inside and then we would speak to the manager about it, or we would decide we were going to go somewhere else.
yeah.
And this just felt like, man, she just wants to go to dinner, like
I know.
And
then can you get to the bathroom?
and it's like, well, yes, well, that's a whole other
Oh
question.
gosh, can I
But
get
it's
in? Can I
one
pee?
step. Yeah, can I get in? Can I
Can I
pee?
pee?
Right, that's a
That's
big
what I'm
one.
doing in my vlogs.
Yeah,
Can I get
yeah,
in? There's a
yeah.
bathroom segment, every single one.
And I feel like, yeah,
And there shouldn't have to be.
yeah, right. And I do feel like there have been these mapping, like crowdsource mapping things about the bathroom radiuses and stuff that people have put together precisely, like in cities like New York, where you might just have
Yes.
this truly tiny. Anyway, that insight from my friend Sherry, and then talking to Michael, other wheelchair using friends, I was like, oh, okay. Could I just make this complaint driven kind of idiosyncratic, inconsistency of the single step entrance? Could I wake it up in your imagination by juxtaposing it with the skateboarding ramp use case as a form of critical design? So like, unlike Luke, the project was not to then go into production and make a bunch of
Exactly.
ramps, but it's shown in museum exhibitions. So it's on right now at the V&A in London in a show on design and disability.
Was that your project that was in Nuit Blanche in Toronto last year? There was a similar one
Possibly.
that I was supposed to volunteer for, but then it was scheduled after the main 24-hour event,
Yeah, yeah. I don't think so.
overnight event,
I
but they
don't
had
think
to
so.
move it because of school access because it was
Yeah.
in a neighborhood. But
Okay.
yeah,
I
this
don't think so, but I did come to Toronto. I mean, it's possible that it's, related somehow, but
mhm,
I don't, not that I was directly involved in, but it
mhm.
is shown in exhibition situations, and that's sort of
Wonderful.
where I think it does its work. It's like a cultural object. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Luke does the
Mm.
work of physical access, and you're doing the
Yes.
mental,
Yes, that's right.
right? Mental.
Yeah, and for
Whereas,
me, yeah,
you
critical
know,
design, like where I care both, it's not just a rendering, like some critical and fictional design is like a proposal in the form of a 2D drawing. And to me, it really
yeah,
matters that like, no, that the
you can
actual
see it.
things are there for their use value. But whereas Luke is sort of like, okay, I'm trying to really shake up your perception and also provide a kind of good at scale, at some scale.
Mhm.
I'm trying to, I sort of, yeah, I'm sort of one step sort of upstream a little bit, I think, where I'm just trying to say, if I rejigger your categories, will you think of this in a different kind of light? So
Yeah,
that's a spirit of a lot of the work that I do.
it's
I
great.
made a film last year, I wrote a book, but so it takes different forms, but it's that same spirit.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
since you brought up about taking different forms, so the story of Amanda's portable lectern for people of short stature really stood out for me. Um,
Mm.
I'm getting into public speaking. Actually, this evening I've got
Nice.
my last two assignments, and I will be on a stage recording.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but being a wheelchair user, standard lecterns don't work for me. I'm familiar some of the benefits of carbon fiber because my Twilight ZRA chair has carbon fiber sideguards. Right?
Yeah.
Can you talk more about what the project revealed about the design of everyday objects and who gets considered in our default settings?
Yeah. Um, yeah, that project. So just for people to be familiar, a little bit more familiar with it,
Yes.
Amanda Kasha, who is a little person, has a form of dwarfism, wrote to me and said she's an art historian and a curator, so she travels, she gives talks for exhibitions, she's also an academic, so she teaches. And she said she knew about this ramps project. She knew that my orientation was for this kind of critical design that's also
Mm-hmm.
functional. So she said, can I'm traveling. I need a lectern that's lightweight and portable and can collapse into a suitcase. And this is, if people are in design, like this is a dream brief,
Oh,
for
yeah.
designers because it's got all these interesting constraints in it. And I was teaching at the time at Olin College of Engineering, which is outside Boston. I teach at
Mm-hmm.
Northeastern University now in Boston, but Olin is an all engineering school and it's heavy on fabrication from day one. So students there are just equipped from their earliest days with this huge shop and array of tools and materials.
That
And
is so experiential learning is so wonderful.
yeah, it's wonderful. And we do a lot. We don't have any grades in the first semester just to try to set people free from that feeling of like, teaching to the test, like we keep
Mm-hmm.
them building things to try to, just engage their bravery. So this is like an advanced design class, but Amanda said, can you build this? And so I had a team of 4 students, all of whom were wonderful, who were like, yeah, what can we do, And
Mm-hmm.
so they ended up building her 1.0 version, which was carbon fiber. And if people
Mm-hmm.
know, yeah, it's like
Ultra
aerospace and
lightweight.
automotive applications. Yeah, it's ultra lightweight and very strong. And we loved the juxtaposition just there that it's this like heavy duty industrial material for this bespoke, custom design for one assistive technology,
Yes.
so it did collapse and unfold and she would kind of perform it in a way, if that makes sense. Like she
Mm-hmm.
would go to the front of a room after her name was called and, she would be introduced or whatever, and she would unfold this in real time. And that alone did this kind of critical work of helping people to think because when you saw her do it, the room would sort of contract
Mm-hmm.
more to her scale momentarily, and then she would be done and it would sort of open back out to, standards and averages. That is how we design rooms, right?
Exactly.
Where are the heights of the light switches and the
Oh,
scale of the
gosh.
tables and chairs and all that. So, and I think some of that is probably necessary. Like you are designing big buildings to house a whole lot of, bodies coming in and out.
Exactly.
But but there are what's interesting in kind of interior architecture and in
Mhm.
kind of distributed DIY fabrication, you know, there are all kinds of possibilities for making the world a little bit more flexible. And I think a
Yes.
portable, lightweight lantern built out of a very novel material was
Mhm.
one such idea, where it's like
Yeah.
carbon fiber hasn't been around that long. How do we take what is an ancient kind of conundrum, which is like how do disabled, misfit, atypical bodies
Mhm.
fit into the shared polis, the city, the built environment?
Exactly.
Um, and how can we just make it a little bit more elastic? So I think sometimes people think in terms of maybe ramps and elevators, but this was a really
Mhm.
great way to think in terms of the object that sort of operates in tandem with architecture. So
Exactly. Like my
she then,
accessible desks
you know,
that go up and
yeah,
down because
yeah,
I've got a 25
yes,
inch rear wheel and I'm tall and I don't fit under most desks, or if I
yeah, okay,
do, it
yeah,
cuts off the circulation in my thighs.
yeah.
And I have circulation issues to begin with.
Yeah. So there's, I
So,
mean, it's all, I think some of those, and I've seen like at the
mhm.
Oscars or at the DNC, I feel like at the big political
Mm,
rallies, those microphones that are seamlessly go up and down. So like we have some high-tech solutions. I think
exactly.
what's interesting, not everybody has those high-tech solutions, but also it's interesting just that object is doing a kind of like frictionful work, when
Yes.
she brings it out. Not even so much to say, oh, we need this at scale. I don't think again, that's not what
No.
critical design really is. It's design again to help you think. It needs to be
Yes.
useful. And that object, I should say, so I mean, it's really hard to do design, build, deliver in 14 weeks, but my students did it. But then
That's a
it has
short period of
very short
time.
period of time. So she then went and worked with an industrial designer to do a 2.0 version that's made of high
Hmm.
performance plastic that's got a bunch of cutouts in it. So it makes it super lightweight. And she really needed and that had been a model for us. We did a ramp for wheelchair dancing, same thing. The students
I'm a
built
dancer.
a whole, oh, nice. Okay, then
Yes,
you
although I
must know
tore
about,
my shoulder. So,
oh, wow. Okay. Well,
yeah.
you must know about Alice Shepard and Laurel Lawson then. That's who. They're they're
Yes,
Americans,
I
but
know
they
more the UK.
okay.
So
Yeah.
I did a class, my first class since getting my chair with
Oh,
the Royal
nice.
Ballet in London through Kate Stanford.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. Well, I know it's a whole
You know,
field. That's the thing that people
yeah.
don't realize. I mean, it's like with its own language and its own terminology and its own kind of canon of moves and so on. But
Hmm.
anyway, so we worked with her on a ramp and she also then went on and got a stage shop to do the kind of finished version. So that's just pedagogically that was really interesting to us. But it's like my students are not going to go make lecterns for short stature again.
Every
They'll
time.
never do that
No.
again. But what's interesting to me in the space of the classroom is helping them to see disability as the most interesting creative
Hmm.
research area that I've ever encountered. And to me, that just doesn't end run around their sentimentality, like the kind of people that you run into on the street who are
Hmm.
over helping. I'm trying to just help students back away from that and just say,
Yes.
what if
Thank
the
you.
body is just this like miraculous adaptive thing in all of its forms,
Yes.
yours and somebody else's? So you don't need to presume what you know about their suffering or their diminishment or their troubles
No.
or their joys. And in fact, of course, wheelchair dance does all this work
Hmm.
immediately, right? Because it makes something balletic out of, using what people think of as clinical gear
Yeah.
and which is clinical gear, but but in its different use cases becomes something else. And so for me, the joy of working in critical design, or even in that case, like this kind of the precise design for one,
Hmm.
is not to propose the item that scales. That's a manufacturing idea. This is a cultural object that again is meant
Yes.
to just help you just rethink in that defamiliarizing way, help you make something familiar into something strange. And then that strangeness helps you gives you kind of oxygen to see it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem solving,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And the
Um,
possibility, the open-ended question, what would be the right object,
yeah.
at the
I
right
get
time?
that with my chair now that I've especially blinged her up,
Mm.
right? And she's got purple lights. I use dog collar,
Oh, nice.
the USB dog collars, LED ones.
Oh,
Leave them in and out of the
nice.
spokes. They go purple, they can
Yeah.
flash.
Yeah.
And I have people stop and go, I've never seen a chair like that. And
Yes.
then they're thinking.
Now they're thinking. Right.
Now
Now
they're
they're
thinking.
thinking. Yes.
Um,
And it's an opening for conversation with you that
oh, I love
doesn't,
it. Like,
yeah,
talk
yeah,
to me about
yeah.
I'm a knitter, right? I've
Yeah.
actually put my knitting away because it would be all over the place.
Yeah.
There's yarn everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, talk to me about my knitting.
Yeah.
Talk to me about my custom socks. And
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
actually combined those two. I have made socks for winter when I'm in a wheelchair that go all the way up to my calves
Oh,
because
nice.
I have circulation issues and my toes will go blue
Yeah. So
because I'm
there you
not
go.
moving my
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I
So
mean,
I've
it's,
combined
yeah.
those two. But yeah,
And
please talk to me about, ask me about my chair,
yeah.
you know,
And
ask me
then
if you
that,
can ask.
yeah. Yeah.
Ask me if you can ask,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But um, I think one of the best things that's happened was about 3, 4 months ago now. I was coming home from class. I do night classes at University of Toronto. Late at night, must have been after 10 o'clock. And so it was dark. I'm in Midtown Toronto, Young and Egg, Young and Eglinton. It's nicknamed
Mm.
Young and Eligible. So there's a
Ah.
lot of bars right near the station and that area. My end sort of cools off a bit. And so I had two younger men who'd obviously been out drinking, going, "Hey, man." I'm like, "Oh, here we go." Right? Here
Yeah.
we go. That's sick, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Totally, pissed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
But good.
but
A friendly drunk. Yeah.
they're friendly. They
Yeah.
like the chair. They
Yeah.
weren't gonna hit on me. They weren't gonna do the bad
Yeah.
redhead jokes that are inappropriate.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just, you know, talk about my object.
Yeah.
Because also on my chair, I sew, I knit, I design. I have my second version of my chair bag. When I originally got my chair, it had a soft back.
Mm.
I unfortunately that's all I needed. I didn't need more support, and it was 13 inches, very low. I have fold down push handles, but because I've used wheelchairs before, rentals, I know that people will grab my chair.
Yeah.
They will
Wow.
try. So I wanted to hide them, but I also needed to be able to carry things on the back of my chair.
Yeah. Mm.
And backpacks don't really work on softbacks because they'll rip the upholstery,
Ah, okay. Yeah.
right? So design problem. I'm half Kiwi,
Mm.
New Zealander. We
Mm.
had chair bags in school that went over back of our stationary wood chairs, and they would go up, here, down, and up. So there'd be a pocket on the back of the chair. So I hand sewed one of those the
Oh,
first week I
nice.
got my chair out of quilting cotton,
Yeah.
sort of figured things out. And then I got some ripstop nylon and did it again. And then I've been trimming over time. But unfortunately, because I was assaulted boarding a bus 5 weeks after getting my chair,
Mm.
and then concussions and further injuries, I now have a different cushion and a different back. I've got a
Ah,
low rigid back. It's still very light. It's still made by the same company that makes my favorite outdoor gear. So it's me,
yeah.
right? It's beautiful design, really comfortable. But now I can put backpacks on. But I still have that on the back.
Yeah. Wow.
And it has this fabric that's purple leafy, like they're actually loose.
Yeah.
I volunteered for Taylor Swift with the city.
Oh, nice. Wow.
So I'm
Yeah.
gonna bling it up.
Yeah.
And again, this wasn't my questions, but how do you feel and think aesthetics leads into accessible design? What have you seen with your students in particular?
Yeah. I mean, I think your example is a great one. I mean, the way that the aesthetics are doing more than just being like a pretty housing for, a functional object. And I think
Hmm.
sometimes people think of aesthetics as that. They think like, oh, you want it in a jazzy color just because it's, somehow prettier or it sort of
Hmm.
follows the logic of fashion. Maybe that's part of it, fine, but I think the stories that you're telling just help invite us to what I am often also saying to students and showing them examples is that, like, remember that all functional objects are also doing cultural symbolic work. That's all, right? It really matters that they work. And then we're all in all of the gear that we use. We're all broadcasting something about self, and we're also negotiating this kind of set of relationships, whether in public or with our families and caregivers or any number of things that the way things look, that the style is housing ideas, right? Maybe that's the
Yes.
easiest way to say it. And, for engineering students, this can be kind of challenging just because they don't, they are, as a rule, this is not everybody, of course. I had plenty of students who also, pursued arts at the same
Mhm.
time. But it wasn't, you go to engineering school because your imagination is captured by, yeah, materials, mechanisms, processes, and kind of parts. And I'm now teaching designers and architects, so they think a little bit more about like, well, what is the visual language of a thing?
Mhm.
What are its associations, in using a certain kind of line quality or a certain kind of style? Sometimes I think, certainly in the United States, which is such a consumer culture, sometimes I think that companies want to earn a lot of points by making beautiful, accessible things
Mhm.
to purchase.
Yes.
Again, some of which we want, especially, OXO, good grips, ergonomic kitchen tools,
Oh,
things like this,
yes.
right? I
I
mean,
was
those
just
those are wonderful. Sometimes I think in a consumer culture, there is a kind of like a go-to of like, what's the widget that you can buy, and it leaves a little bit unexamined some
Mhm.
of the more intransigent issues, like how do we address, the loneliness of older adults, or
Mhm.
the kind of, the undertreatment of psychiatric conditions that allows people to live on the street,
Mhm.
unhelped. I mean, so
Or
in other
youth
words,
mental health, which was my former career,
yeah, right. I mean, just
was a
what a
big part of
behemoth
it.
that is. Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
like cool jacket you're going to buy that's going to.
No.
So in a way, so I just, I mean, I think people sense this intuitively.
Mhm.
Aesthetics both makes a difference, and it's
Mhm.
also, just one piece of a larger question. So
Yeah.
I never want to get too kind of like obsessed about just the look of things.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, in the outdoors, which is, I grew up doing a lot of that,
Mm.
a lot of that. Function before fashion,
Yeah.
but include fashion if it works,
Yes. Right. 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 Right.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
And there's no
Yeah.
need something has to be completely ugly,
That's right. That's right.
right? Like
Or to follow only from medical gear, right? Where people
yes.
are using things as extensions of the body.
I think there was two more stories from the book that I really enjoyed or
Mm.
identified with. Um, oh, and if the viewers and listeners don't know, you divided your book into a series of things like chair, clocks, if you can fill those in again.
Yeah, in fact,
Yeah.
it's sort of, there's a logic to it. The first chapter is called Limb, and it's about wearable prosthetics. So it's like nearest to
Hmm.
the body. And then every chapter that follows goes kind of one scale out from the body. So it goes limb on the body,
Hmm.
chair, which is sort of furniture and products,
Hmm.
room, which is like the architecture, street, obviously for
Yes.
planning. And the last chapter is called Clock, which is about the dimension of time. And there is the place that I talk about raising a child with Down syndrome. He's the
Yes.
oldest of my three. He's 19 years old now. And so Clock was my way of trying to get to like, yeah, what do you do when the way we talk about cognition, kind of
Hmm.
defies sensory and mobility capacity that we would think of as like assistive tech
Yes.
friendly, and we're really more in the realm of kind of economic worth, and what do we
Hmm.
mean by developmental delays? And just like all the ways that we talk about, um, yeah, normal development in time. And so it's about sharing life together, and what I've learned about cognitive disability. Yeah.
Yeah.
So but what were you going to
That
say
was
about that?
the concept of crip time. Um,
Ah,
so as a
yeah.
wheelchair user, I'm intimately familiar with it. I'm actually planning a separate YouTube video. I've got a very long list of ones I'm planning. Um, for instance, a few weeks ago, I had to wait for two ramps to be built to access the accessible entrance of Eglinton
Ah,
subway station. Thank you, Paul, master
mm.
carpenter, because someone had built something very short. They hadn't built anything. They put down a square piece of wood.
Oh,
I
wow.
can't use
Yeah.
that. So I had to wait to get, and then in order to get to class.
Yeah. I
And if
mean,
I didn't have a torn
yeah.
shoulder, I could have rolled there in that time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's about 8 kilometers.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. That
I've
is
been downhill, but I've
yeah.
done it.
Yeah.
Reach shoulder tear. But could you talk a little bit more about crip time and that
Yeah.
concept? So I think
Yeah.
that's
And
really
it's
important for people to know.
Yeah, and it's not my concept. I'm citing
No.
there Ellen Samuels and
Hmm.
Alison Kafer, and there are others too. But
Yes.
Crip time is one of those kind of terms of art that came from disability studies and disabled advocates, just trying to name this other dimension of life, especially under industrialized modernity, which is to
Hmm.
say that industrial modernity has in its DNA a wish to make people into efficient machines, because that's
Yes.
how big markets and big city systems work. And we all benefit from some of that. I mean, it's
Mm.
not like it's categorically, I'm not actually against markets as such, but industrialized globalization has a way of just colonizing all forms of life to be more machinic and to value our lives insofar as they behave and pattern like machines. So the way that we go through school and jobs and think about our work and so on. Again, this is, maybe particularly exaggerated in the United States,
Hmm.
but, is I think recognizable elsewhere too.
Yeah.
And so Crip time is this way of talking about how disability is just grit in that system. I mean, it is a kind of rebuke to the body as this efficient machine. And so if you
Mm.
find yourself a disabled person or indeed, sharing life in an interdependent way
Yes.
where disability shows up, then you see just the disjuncture between this kind of compelling force of normative life and then being life on Crip time, which is not,
Yeah.
I mean, I think Alison Kafer says it's not like people talk about flex time
Yes.
in their jobs, which is something that people need in terms of making room for family and sort of, trying to rethink whether 9 to 5, and the pandemic gave us that, like rethinking
Oh,
flex time.
for sure.
But she says Crip time is not just flex time
No.
expanded. She says it's more like flex time exploded. Because
Yes.
Crip time is just a more forceful critique of like, well, what makes life worth living? And for me,
Mm.
this felt very, very liberating to hear a name for a thing that I intuited about my son, Graham, who's proceeding through school was just always attended by these kind of measures and metrics for how well he was doing compared to the average and whether, how we were going to talk about his life, as economically worthy. I mean, because that in the end, that is what the developmental delay
Yes.
signifies. It's failure to become a tax-paying citizen
Right.
in a kind of legible way. So Kafer, Samuels, and lots of other scholars helped me see that it just, people make fun of academic theory as like all jargon, and some of that is warranted. Crip time, though, was to me one of those like academic theory terms that describes something really real. And I always want for students and others, I wrote this book
Mm.
for the non-expert reader, but I love trying to bring,
It's very accessible
I'm glad, yeah. I wanted it to like both bring the
that way.
complexity of some of that theory, but not in a way where you have to be inside disability studies to really get it. My hope was to try to translate and say,
Yes.
here's what it means and what it looks like. Because I do think that it can be nice to have a word for a thing that you find hard to name, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the second story, um, actually the third out of them was Stephen and Wendy Jacobs, with
Yeah.
Stephen mapping his environment with flagging tape. So just like Stephen, I'm a longtime lover of maps, navigation, all sorts of transport. My channel is a combination of wheelchair lifestyle and public transit urban design,
Okay, nice. Yeah.
right? Because they need to intersect,
Yeah.
right? There's something missing from both content usually when I'm watching it. So
Yeah.
bringing that together. So
Nice.
could you share a
Yeah,
little bit about the project and what you learned from Stephen? Because you met him later in life,
I
right?
did.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So Wendy Jacob is an artist whose work affected me profoundly. I mean, I think she was the kind of aha for me. Her partnership with Temple Grandin, who people probably know is a very famous autistic self-advocate and engineer. Oliver Sacks wrote about Temple Grandin in the 90s, I want to say, in the New Yorker, and then put that story in his book, one of his books. But Grandin had built for herself this squeeze machine that was a kind of proxy for the kind of deep pressure of a human hug that she found really relaxing at the end of her day and that she wanted in lieu of human connection. And so she and Wendy then partnered on some squeeze chairs, these kind of like
Ooh.
upholstered chairs that would reach up around and hug you. And in Wendy's, formulation, those are exhibited as the result of a kind of collaboration, but they go out as kind of art objects. Again, this kind of
Mm.
critical design, this sort of cultural, but Grandin made this very practical thing for herself. And to me, the dual nature of that was just so interesting and so like poetic and true to life, kind of. So Wendy's work really affected me when my son was a baby. I discovered her work and it kind of went,
Oh.
oh, okay,
Hmm.
design can do these things all at once. So I wanted to include her in the book, and her work is the most kind of artful and expressive of all the stories in the book. Most of the stories in the book are about very practical design.
Hmm.
But Wendy, as an artist, also had a project called the Explorers Club, in which she and an autistic, at that time, 10-year-old boy went around the city of Boston exploring together, and partly organized around this kind of barrier that Stephen had. This is a pseudonym for him.
Hmm.
Um, that Stephen had about his kind of overwhelm in the face of wide open spaces. And this is not uncommon in autistic spectrum conditions or
Hmm.
sensory processing conditions.
There's a lot going on.
That's a lot going on.
A lot
And
going
as I say in the book, he would wear glasses even with clear lenses in them because he liked the linear frame. It just gave some
on.
organization
Hmm.
to this kind of undifferentiated expanse that he found overwhelming. So like a big newly fallen, snow on his front yard was just alarming. And similarly, some of these open plazas in the city of Boston. So they were like, let's go exploring. And what they used was just that kind of like brightly colored caution tape
Yeah.
to explore by means of making a linear path through these big expanses and then walking on it and just kind of partitioning the world. I should say, before he was willing to do that, they
Mhm.
did tape and lines within her studio in a bounded kind of
Yes.
space. And then she said one day by means of tape, made a kind of like a door, like a little opening on the wall. And she thought, maybe this is our sign. Like maybe it's time we try outdoors. So they did. They
The
went
magic paint on the door. Do you
where
know the
you
cart?
walk.
Remember
Yeah.
the cartoon Simon?
Yes, exactly.
They
Yeah.
know
That
my name is
like
Simon,
Simon
and the
and the
things
things
I
I
try to come true.
that's
So
right.
you draw
Walk
you draw
through.
and you walk
Yeah.
into the imaginary chalkland.
Totally. She must have thought of that. I mean, because it
Mhm.
would have been her era also of childhood. That's so great. I had never made that connection.
Yeah.
But so they did this kind of project where, you know, if people aren't familiar in contemporary art, it would be
Mhm.
called social practice,
Yes.
where some of the work itself is an event and a kind of documented event or an encounter that might be partly useful and might be partly expressive and poetic, but the event itself is the work. And so,
Okay.
when Wendy presents that work, she'll do maybe a series of like kind of almost panoramically presented photographs of that line and maybe
Mhm.
Stephen from the back or whatever. But she thinks of the totality of the work in the way
Mhm.
that social practice artists do as that series of meetings, because she would say she was not interested in hmm, like therapeutically helping
Mhm.
Stephen with the assistive technology of the tape, this kind of way of getting him braver. It turns out that it actually did have a kind of adaptive effect, meaning after that, Stephen would take tape to the beach, on a trip
Yes.
with his parents or whatever. And it actually did help him to kind of venture forth in a way that his family was hoping that he would do and that he also wanted, in the world.
Mhm.
So it had a kind of use value, which to me is really interesting. But even more interesting is the fact that Wendy, she was just really interested in how Stephen's mind worked. Like that's it.
Mhm.
Friendship is not useful. Friendship is just the joy of being together.
Mhm.
And so to me, the kind of freedom that had of making, using a tool, an unusual tool that would be useful, but really was much more about the kind of meeting of minds. It was so
Yes.
beautiful.
To
Yeah,
come
so that's the
together.
beginning of the street chapter. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think that's the street chapter. Yeah.
Yes. This is Street Chapter. It was wonderful.
Thank you. But
You're-
most people don't ask about that because it's like it's a weirder project, than people are used to. But
I
to
love
me,
maps.
so special. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes. So
yeah,
I've done undergrad and some postgrad in urban geography, urban planning. So
yeah. Well, this was,
fascinating.
I should say, I
You
mean,
know, it's
Stephen,
fascinating. You can
yeah,
see it,
yeah, yeah,
and, he's making vectors
yeah.
as opposed to raster,
That's right.
which is the pixels and that fill in a square.
Yes. And I should say, right, in the same way that we're all a series of peaks and valleys of our capacity. I mean, Stephen has a photographic memory for maps. I mean,
Mhm.
he could remember directions in the car. He had memorized the entire train system. So he had all kinds of skill. And but he
Yes.
had this other big barrier. And to me, that's what's so fascinating about the human sensorium. Like it is, we all are carrying around, and that doesn't mean we're all the same. And right, adaptation matters differently for different people. Like it was a big barrier for him not
Mhm.
to be able to get out, into space. So he needed the assistance there, but also like he's a wondrous, human being, like
Yeah.
a whole world inside there.
Any
So
transit geek is a
beautiful.
friend,
Yeah, right. Yeah,
right?
seriously. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The tape also reminded me of one of the activities I taught when I did experiential outdoor education.
Mm,
It's called Look, See, Paint.
mm.
So everyone, just about that would come to the program, so we're talking middle school age, sometimes high school, was overwhelmed at trying to paint a watercolor.
Mm.
But in an hour with a slide viewfinder, the old-fashioned slides, not
Yeah.
not PowerPoint,
Yeah,
really
yeah,
just
yeah.
then, without a slide in it, you would look through there and you would paint exactly what was in that tiny square
Oh,
on a little
yes.
piece of watercolor paper
Yeah,
with I think it was 8 watercolors and a little
yeah,
brush. That was it.
yeah,
And it was simple, and everyone came away with something
yeah.
because you just break it down.
Break it down. Yeah,
Break it
just,
down,
yeah,
make it manageable. And
yeah,
it's the same thing.
yeah,
And Stephen and Wendy's project produced art.
yeah.
Looksy Paint does as well.
Yes. And
So,
it's like handing people a kind of exercise in close observation
yes.
that you can actually wrap your head around and then something results. I love that kind of prompt. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to time for both of us.
Yeah.
So, um, so maybe we can do two quick ones,
Sure.
or we'll try to keep them quick. Who is someone whose accessibility or design work you think more people should know about? And especially if they could maybe be on a podcast.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Well, when you were talking before about the meaning of backpacks and bags and chairs, I was
Mhm.
thinking about Grace Jun.
Sorry, could you
Grace
say that
was
again?
is
Grace
a
Judd?
Grace Jun,
Judd.
Jun. She's at
J-U-N.
University of Georgia now, but
Mhm.
she's one of the co-founders of the Open Style Lab. And she came out with a book. She's going to be a guest online actually at my institution at Northeastern this fall, called Fashion, Disability, and Co-Design. And it's a really great book that's got a lot of how-tos, for doing like
Mm.
really close observation, partnering in a co-designed way around adaptive fashion in particular. So I'm very, because between, yeah, new textiles, fabrication
Hmm.
techniques, magnetized zippers, there's so many really interesting
Yeah,
things that you can do with clothing.
like the
And it's
magnet
so
on my
everyday.
microphone,
Yes, exactly.
right?
Yeah. All the ways that you can make little switches to replace things that are fiddly and cumbersome, like shoelaces or
Mhm.
holes in buttons and whatever. So Grace is somebody whose work I'm really um, always really interested in. And I would have said Luke too, but he's going to be familiar to your audience.
Mhm.
I mean, so many people,
Yeah.
doing such amazing work. But I would look to Grace for a kind of like one of the richest examples of like so
And
many.
you said the magic word textiles and fiber,
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. I'm a
right?
needle pointer, so we're like
Okay.
I do a lesser thing than knitting is way above my pay grade, but needlepoint feels like
Well,
from
if you
my
can
thing.
count to four, you can knit.
Well, that's what people say, but apparently I get tripped up.
6 millimeter wood needles, 100% chunky wool yarn. There's physics.
Okay.
There's physics in there.
Okay.
So,
Maybe
okay.
I'll take another try. Yeah.
Yeah. And in closing, since you're a teacher and I'm
Yeah.
well, I guess I'm still teaching, but in a different manner. What advice would you give to someone, maybe a student, designer, or teacher who wants to start thinking more critically about accessibility, but doesn't know where to begin?
Yeah. Well, right this second, I mean, this summer, Amy Hemry and Moya Bailey, who are at Vanderbilt and Northwestern, respectively, did a critical design lab, all remote experience, and it was open invitation. So it's like students and all kinds of people, and they had a bunch of lectures. And so I would look at, and it's called Critical Design Lab.
Mhm.
I would look at that resource because I bet they're going to put all that stuff online and make a lot of those resources available. That's a great starting place. Open Style Lab also has a summer kind of 10-week program, and it's in New York City, but it's on nights and weekends, so it's meant to be amenable to people who are like doing summer internships if they're students.
Mhm.
Open Style Lab has launched the kind of like design, inclusive design careers of a number of young students of mine in the past. So look for some of those like drop in, get your feet wet, kind of examples.
Mhm.
And if you can't do those as a participant, there again, they'll have the kind of documentation and stuff. And I would really look at Grace's book, which is chock full of frameworks and drawings
Mm.
and just like it's got a lot of how to. It's
Which
not
is
a
lovely.
yeah, it's lovely. I love that
Yeah.
kind of hybrid book. So I would look at those three sources as a kind of like, oh, what's going on here? But there's also, I mean, compared to 10 years ago, I mean, you just Google around online and you will find all kinds of stuff on YouTube, people who are sharing videos about doing life with, in the kitchen with one hand or whatever. Like you can find
Yes.
all
Oh,
kinds.
I've so
Yeah,
many of those.
yeah, it's
That's
huge, whole
so I
genre.
huge list.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Brittany from Empowered Para is how I got my wheelchair
Oh, nice.
in
Okay.
Alberta. My
Yeah.
wheelchair gloves are from Jem Hubbard, Wheels No Heels,
Wow.
in the UK from one
Yeah.
of her videos. And then I contacted Global Leather,
Yeah.
asked a sizing question, and they sent me two different gloves as complementary pairs, like
Oh,
two complementary
fantastic.
pairs,
Yeah.
and they're wonderful.
Yeah. So
And
you
the
could
last,
find stuff. I mean, it's like
yeah,
the world has changed in
it's
10 years even.
one reason for my YouTube channel
Wonderful.
to get
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah, just
And
more sharing.
uh,
Yeah.
so the last question I ask everyone is, how do you have a really awesome day?
Oh, how do I have
Pun
a
intended.
yes, pun intended. Um, well, it's time, wheeling or walking or, transport and moving around, I find, is for me that is when I do my think time and my um, kind of connection time and time with friends and family and good meals and a good book before bed.
That
But
sounds wonderful.
yeah, yeah, especially in late summer. So,
Yes, it's a good plan.
well, it's been a joy to connect again, Liz.
Yes, thank you so much,
Yeah,
Sarah.
of
Yes,
course.
thank you for being my first guest, for testing the
Pleasure.
waters and
Yeah,
helping me remember that it's going to be curd cuts and conversations with cats,
right on. Yes, yes,
or at
exactly.
least with that one. I've got
Yes,
two, but
exactly.
that one,
It only takes one. And you've
that
got
one in Boo interrupts.
like Boo knew that you needed a third C,
Oh,
Kirk,
of course.
conversations and cats. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, good luck to you and
Thank
best
you.
wishes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care and
You
good luck
too.
tonight.
Thank you. Ever get tired of banks charging fees just to hold your money? Here's something better. If you're in Canada, you can sign up with Simply Financial through my referral link in the show notes and earn $50 when you open one of the following: a no-fee checking or high-interest savings account, a cashback Visa card, or a personal line of credit. I actually bank with Simply myself. The bonus I got when I opened my account paid for my upgraded wheelchair tires. And right now I'm earning a $100 Presto Transit credit from my credit card offer. Plus, Simply is owned by CIBC, which is fun for me because all my mom and all four of her sisters worked there in the 60s when it was still called the Bank of Commerce. There's even a photo of them in the company newsletter together. One of my aunts is rocking a beehive with a bow. If you sign up and complete the requirements, I'll also send you a free magnet or a $10 USD coupon to my merch shop as a thank you. The link and terms are in the show notes. Supporting the show helps keep Boo stocked with treats, Mabel rolling a fresh catnip, and me just rolling. That's it for this first episode of Curb Cuts and Conversations. A huge thank you to Sara Hendren for joining me being my first guest. You'll find links to her work and book in the show notes, along with a discount code for podcast merch and how to support the show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time, and have a really awesome day.